Is a clash between Texas and Washington imminent, or is it just a fantasy? As we delve into this question, we see the tension between these two entities unfolding, a tension rooted in the illegal immigration crisis and the question of decision-making authority. On one side of the ring, we have the Democratic President Joe Biden, and on the other, the Republican Governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. Their views diverge, particularly on the issue of border security. Abbott's decision to maintain barbed wire on the border with Mexico, a move that directly challenges the authority of the U.S. government, has raised eyebrows and questions. And not just any questions, but questions about the possibility of a showdown between Texas and Washington. This isn't just about barbed wire. Abbott has also deployed Abrams tanks and Bradley combat vehicles to reinforce the Texas-Mexico border. This move, while supported by former President Trump and a number of Republicans, has raised the stakes and the tension. We find ourselves in the midst of a gripping political drama where two factions, each with their own vision for border security, are locking horns. The situation is further complicated by the upcoming presidential elections, where the confrontation between Biden and Trump is expected to resurface. In the midst of this unfolding tension, we can't ignore the role of the National Guard. The possibility of a clash between the Guard and federal forces has been speculated upon. Yet according to Isaac Andikian, an international conflict management expert from Atlanta, such a clash is nothing more than a fantasy. As the tension continues to mount, it's clear that a showdown is brewing. However, the question remains, is a physical clash really on the cards? As we delve deeper into the heart of this conflict, we must keep our eyes open and our minds ready to discern the difference between political posturing and imminent conflict. The tension is not just about border control, it's also about the upcoming presidential election. The current friction between the state of Texas and Washington is acting as a catalyst, accelerating the pace of the presidential election campaign that's just around the corner. The political horizon is buzzing with anticipation of a repeat showdown between the incumbent, President Joe Biden, and the former President Donald Trump. The election campaign is not only about securing votes, it's about negotiation and compromise. The Democrats and Republicans, two sides of the same coin, are in the midst of a negotiation that extends beyond the immediate concerns of the American people. It's not just about addressing the surge of migrants crossing the border via Mexico, but also about providing vital military aid to Ukraine. Just a few days ago, an agreement was on the brink of being put into effect. This agreement, according to Agence France-Presse, required a mutual exchange of approvals, Biden's priority of aiding Ukraine, and the Republicans' demand for funding to bolster border security. It's a complex game of give and take, with each side trying to balance their own interests with the needs of the nation. But it's not just about international affairs and border control. The presidential election is a boiling pot of various issues, all interconnected and all vital to the future direction of the United States. From immigration reform to economic policies, from social justice to climate change, all these issues are part of the election campaign, and all are influenced by the current tension between Texas and Washington. As we inch closer to the election, it's clear that the stakes are high. The outcome of this election could shape the future of the United States, determining the country's stance on important issues, and potentially redefining the balance of power between the state and federal government. With the presidential election on the horizon, the stakes are high. The fear of a broader civil conflict is palpable. This fear was fueled by the governor of Texas's decision to enforce border security, not with mere patrols but with military-grade tanks and Bradley combat vehicles. It seemed like a scene from a dystopian novel, a state in the land of the free and the home of the brave, deploying military machines along its border in defiance of the federal government. The governor's decision was not made in isolation. It came with the backing of the former President Donald Trump and a number of Republicans, creating a sense of a fortified front against the federal government. This wasn't a lone wolf's act of rebellion, but a collective and strategic defiance, a stark political statement that resonated with half of the American states. Indeed, the governor of Texas was not alone in his stance. 25 Republican governors threw their weight behind him, constituting about half of all the states in the Union. This solidarity, while it might have been a source of strength for the governor, also fueled the rising fear of an imminent civil conflict. The deployment of military vehicles on the border, the backing of Trump, the support of other Republicans, all these factors created a perfect storm, a climate of anxiety and apprehension. The fear of a civil conflict began to take root in the minds of the American people. The question on everyone's mind was not if but when would the tension boil over into an outright conflict. Yet we must pause and ask, is this fear justified? Or is it merely a byproduct of political rhetoric, a fear-mongering tactic used to sway public opinion? The fear of civil conflict is real, but is it justified? The proposed immigration law is a hot topic. In the midst of all this tension, the draft law on immigration has quickly become a central issue, a political chess piece wielded in the fervor of presidential election campaigns. As we inch closer to the elections, the discourse around immigration law is intensifying, with both sides leveraging it to rally support. President Joe Biden has thrown his weight behind the proposed draft law, stressing that it encompasses a comprehensive set of reforms that he deems the strongest in terms of border control. In a recent statement, he emphasized, "This will give me, as president, new emergency authority to close the border when it becomes crowded. If given this authority, I will use it on the same day I sign the bill into effect." On the other side of the aisle, former President Donald Trump is also using the immigration issue to stage his political comeback. He's warning of the situation on the porous border and is vociferously criticizing Republicans who support the bill in the Senate. In his words, a bad border agreement is much worse than no agreement at all. This tug of war over the immigration law is not just about policy. It's a reflection of the ideological divide between the Democrats and Republicans, a testament to the polarized state of American politics. But it's also about the people caught in the middle, the migrants seeking a better life, the border communities dealing with the influx, and the American public watching it all unfold. As the debate continues, it's clear that the immigration law is more than just a piece of legislation. It's a symbol of the complex dynamics of power, politics, and people. It's a key issue in the upcoming elections, undoubtedly. But will it be the tipping point in the battle for the White House? That remains to be seen. The immigration law is a key issue, but will it be the tipping point? Is a clash between the American Guard and the federal forces a reality or a fantasy? A question that might be lingering in the minds of many. But according to Isaac Andikian, an international conflict management expert, this notion is far from reality. It's a fantasy. As tensions rise, it's easy to be swept up in a whirlwind of heated political discourse and the rapid-fire exchange of accusations. The spotlight has been on the escalating tension between Texas and Washington, the controversial immigration law, and the looming presidential election. But is it all leading to a showdown between the American Guard and the federal forces? Andikian's perspective offers a reality check. The United States, with its robust constitutional framework and checks and balances, is designed to prevent such conflicts. The clash we're envisioning is more theatrical than practical. It's a narrative that attracts attention but doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Yes, the tension is real, the issues are real. The power struggle between the Democratic President Joe Biden and the Republican Governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, over the decision-making authority on border security is very much real. The immigration crisis, the controversial border security measures, the heightened political rhetoric, all these factors contribute to the tension. But at the end of the day, we must remember that the United States is a democratic country, founded on the principles of unity and the rule of law. The possibility of a state clashing with the federal forces contradicts these principles. The tension might be a reality, but a clash? That's a fantasy. So, we find ourselves back where we started, grappling with the same question. But now, we have a clearer perspective. The tension between Texas and Washington is a reality. The issues are complex, the stakes are high, and the political landscape is fraught with challenges. But a clash between the American Guard and the federal forces? That's a narrative best left to the realm of fantasy. Despite the escalating tension, a clash between the American Guard and the federal forces remains a fantasy.